Alright everybody, welcome back. So it's been a while since my last What to Expect video, and this one is slightly different because we already have the first of the series in game. As previously mentioned in my SE-27 family video, the Chinese have a separate series of flanker variants that I felt deserve their own video. So here we are. Let's start out with J-11s. In quick moment of transparency, you probably know this already, but the communist Chinese government isn't exactly the most forward when it comes to their military information, and it's kind of hard to get stuff out of that area of the globe as well, so some of this stuff was very hard to research. I'm not 100% sure everything is correct. I'm pretty sure this is all right, but I may get a couple things wrong. So, with that out of the way, so to start off with, we have the J-11 proper. We already have this in game already, and it is simply an SE-27SK. This is the export SE-27S, and in in-game terms it is almost identical. Just a little bit heavier due to its reinforced landing gear. As y'all will all be familiar with, it does have access to the R-73, R-27R and ER, and the R-27T and ET. These go on 10 pylons, 6 of which can use IR weapons. The outer 6 pylons can all use those IR weapons, and all of those can be R-73s. On the other hand, only the inner 2 of these can actually use the R-27T or ET. The middle 4 pylons can only use the radar-guided R-27s. Like the SE-27S, this variant has only dumb munitions like bombs and rockets, no form of guided cast for any use. Next we have the J-11A, which is almost certainly the next version that we can expect to see in War Thunder. This version will be similar to the SE-27SKM, which the Chinese actually partially funded that upgrade and had initially been interested in it, but it would wind up being a homegrown upgrade kit, albeit with Russian tech still mostly. Compared to the standard J-11, the J-11A would have the same amount of pylons and still Russian missiles only, but would now get a new radar, the N001BE. It would also gain access to the R-77 missile. So similar to the SE-27SM, that would mean it could carry a maximum of 6 R-77s and 4 R-73s for a total of 10 missiles. The same kit of R-27s could still be carried, both radar and IR, so for example, if you wish to mix 4 R-73s, 2 R-27ETs, and 4 R-77s would be totally fine. For you sim enjoyers, that also gained a new cockpit with digital electronics and at least 2 MFDs. Still no upgrade to the air-to-air ground ordnance here either. Up next, we have the J-11B, which seems to be what basically everyone thinks of when they think J-11. I've heard so many people saying our J-11 would get PL-12s. Well, this is the one that actually would. The J-11B was the first variant that would actually gain a substantial amount of Chinese influence, notably gaining a brand new and much improved radar, the Type 1493 with a range of around 150 kilometers. The engines would also be swapped to Chinese engines with greater thrust at this point. There will be multiple different versions installed over the production run, and also the airframe was lightened at this point with the use of composite materials. To go with these changes, it also gained a new missile kit, which included the PL-8, the Python 3 we all know and love. However, it would likely get more advanced versions of the PL-8 that we actually don't have yet in game, and these would include IRCCM. The J-11B would also gain access to the PL-12, which is a missile with performance claimed to be in between the AMRAAM-B and AMRAAM-C5 in performance, but still only 6 of them max, or 10 missiles total. We will actually see the PL-12 in the upcoming update, and of course in this case on the J-8F, but it only carries 2 of them. It will actually likely be the best active radar homing missile next update, but we won't have to worry about a large amount of them for quite a while, at least until the J-11B comes. Once again, for sim enthusiasts, this version would have a whopping 5 MFDs and a brand new holographic HUD. One other major thing is the J-11B also gained a MAWS system, or a Missile Approach Warning System. It has 2 sensors which will cover the rear hemisphere. That way if anyone fires a missile behind you, even an IR missile, it will let you know, and if you wish to do so, you can have it fire flares off for you as well. At this point, I will mention there is a land-based naval version that is essentially the exact same thing, which is called the J-11BH, which could possibly be a premium or event vehicle. The J-11B also initially was fitted with the original Saturn engines from the normal SE-27, so a version with weaker engines could also be another option for that role instead. They did also make twin-seat versions of both the B and the BH, which are known as the J-11BS and the J-11BSH, which are other options for Gaijin to implement. These are all exactly the same thing, really just have a different paint job, and the Chinese just gave them a different name for some reason. So this next section is going to be a little tricky as there is insanely little detail available on them. So I will start with the version that I know for sure exists, the J-11BG. This is a proper 4.5 Gen fighter, the most massive upgrade once again being the radar, this time to an ESA radar. You can tell the BG from earlier flankers by the gray color radome. RAM, or radar absorbent material, has also been added to the intakes and other reflective areas of the aircraft, reducing its cross-section and head-on. No one knows, of course, 100% for sure how much of an improvement this brings, but a pretty common figure I found was about a 25% reduction to the RCS, which is a nice little bonus, especially with how large the flanker is. The BG still has the standard 10 missiles for a flanker, but would gain some new missiles, that being the PL-10 and PL-15 missiles. The PL-10 is an extremely advanced IR missile in the same generation as stuff like the AIM-9X. It has thrust vectoring, lock-on after launch, data link, and an advanced seeker with high flare resistance. It has all the other trappings of a modern missile. The PL-15, on the other hand, is a missile with extremely long range in excess of 200 kilometers, on par with the Meteor missile in service with many European nations. However, notably the no escape zone is likely smaller as, unlike the Meteor, it has a solid rocket motor compared to the Ramjet. This would mean that the PL-15 would likely accelerate much faster than the Meteor, but over an extended period of time, especially if the target is maneuvering, it would not be able to maintain its energy nearly as well. Like previously, the Chinese also made a land-based naval BSH, and it turned out to be the exact same thing. It is just a land-based naval version of the exact same plane, given a different designation and paint job. That's it. Either one of these would likely come a little bit before or at the same time as stuff like the F-15EX or Super Hornet, or possibly the J-11D instead. Speaking of, the J-11D prototype definitely exists, but I have no idea if any have actually entered service or not. China isn't exactly forthcoming with that info. What I can tell you is the prototype had a further improved airframe over the J-11BG, with even more weight-saving composites being used. It also gained an extra pylon for the PL-12s and PL-15s in each wing. This brought the total missile load to 12 missiles, 8 radar and 4 IR. It also has even better engines than the upgraded ones in the J-11B series. If this does come to War Thunder, it would be the definitive J-11 version, but there are more flankers yet to come. The J-15 was the Chinese answer to the Su-33, and to be honest, it essentially is one. China actually was originally trying to purchase Su-33s from the Russians, but after negotiations ended, they instead purchased a T-10K3, which is a prototype Su-33, from Ukraine, and they reverse engineered it, which is why it looks so very similar. The J-15 would originally have the same radar as the J-11B, which is the Type 1493. It would also have the same kit to start with, the PL-8 and PL-12 missiles. However, like the Su-33 compared to the normal Su-27, it would actually have 8 pylons for the PL-12 instead of just 6. The plane is actually all around better than the Su-33. It is lighter and has stronger engines than it, while also having the capability to fire active radar homing missiles, which the Su-33 still lacks. The plane would also go on to be upgraded to the J-15B, which had access to the PL-10 and PL-15 mentioned earlier, and a new ESA radar. Along with its air-to-air weaponry, this is the first Chinese flanker to have air-to-surface ability, gaining the ability to use the KD-88, which is a long-range surface-to-air missile. I have found almost nothing on it online, but Wikipedia says it has 200-kilometer launch range and 165-kilogram warhead. The JH-7 can also use it, and it doesn't have access to it in-game, so I honestly doubt the J-15 would be any different. It also gains the YJ-83K anti-ship missile, which is similarly iffy, and the YJ-91 anti-radiation missile. Now, this one was developed from the KH-31P anti-radiation missile, apparently, which there's also very little information about this, and I think it's the most likely to actually make an appearance in-game whenever this aircraft arrives. So I have a feeling by this point we'll probably have some sort of seed function in-game. The final proper Chinese flanker is the J-16, which is essentially their F-15E counterpart. This was derived from their twin-seat J-11BS. Like the J-15, it has 12 hardpoints missiles, the same engines, and it also has ESA that the J-15B would use. It had access to the PL-10 and PL-15 missiles from the get-go, but it has also been spotted with the extremely long-range PL-21 missile, which has over 300-kilometer range. It can use the same anti-ship, anti-surface, and anti-radiation missiles to the J-15, but it also gets a targeting pod and laser-guided bombs as well. This would be the first Chinese flanker actually useful in ground RB, but it would almost certainly be a long time before we see it in game. This thing is just way too advanced. There is also the J-16D, which is an electronic warfare version and is less likely to come. The most major difference, at least for War Thunder, is the fact that it actually loses the gun to provide room for the new equipment. Finally, China has actually bought some other Sukhoi since their initial Se-27 SKs from Russia. They have purchased the Se-30 MKK and MK2, which have access to Russian missiles like the R-73, R-27, and R-77, and notably missiles such as the KH-29T, KH-59, and laser-guided bombs like the KAV-500 and 1500. It also gets the KH-31P anti-radiation missile. As far as I can tell, they haven't really done many modifications of these while in service, although allegedly they were able to get some Chinese engines that had more thrust working on it. I wasn't actually able to prove this. That is a major doubt right there. If China is to get a flanker for CAS relatively soon, this will likely be it, as I said earlier, the J-16 is just way too strong to come anytime reasonably soon. Another very major purchase China has recently made was actually to buy the Su-35S. If you want more details on that version, my Russian flanker video covered in more detail. I'll have it in the same playlist, as along with my F-15 and Gripen family videos. I hope you enjoyed. I've been saying I was going to make this for months now, and I finally got around to doing it. Part of it is just that it's super hard to get proper details on these planes. China isn't exactly the most forthcoming with this information, so if you did actually like this, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It means a lot to me, and it shows me you want to see more of these in the future. Hope you all have a great day, and, well, peace. I'll catch y'all next time.